mic, and we are back. John, you were saying about the
issue of institutional memory.
Yes.
I think that is something that, as a country, we need to begin to look at in a serious way. We are probably one of the most studied islands in the world, countries in the world, because we do studies and then we do studies of studies in the process. Right? If you were to gather all the feasibility studies and all the full studies that have been done over the last, I would say, 30 years, and put them in one particular location, you may have to build a library to contain it.
Right.
All right? So we have a serious problem where we have been engaged in a series of feasibility studies and studies. That is lost either because of administrative change or as a result of a change in terms of who will be the head of department per se.
Question for you, because you are on the same page with me as far as these studies are concerned. I feel, I'm not trying to flatter you, but you are a qualified engineer. You work as a public works. Let us assume that you are in charge now, you were there, and you want to wait. Don't you think we have the expertise right here without going to get a feasibility done to put a little bridge?
But I would say to you, look back out of pure curiosity.
Yeah.
Look back at the budget presentations from 1996, 1995, 96 to 2014. And pull out of those the ideas that were presented to us every year and how many of them have implemented. Your implementation rate is probably less than 10%. So we have enough ideas collectively in all the budgets to suffice us for the next 20 years without even presenting budgets again in the next few years.
You know, John, maybe it's just my nature. I like to get value for my money. My brother was an engineer here some 55 years ago and put down that Canaries Bailey Bridge. Okay? The bridge lasted 55 years. Hurricanes came and hurricanes went. Now, I've been saying repeatedly, we need to get those Bailey bridges. And I'm glad to see that they got 6 bridges. But I went down there and I noticed the bridge that was there is still lying in the river.
That's correct.
And I examined the bridge and I didn't see anything radically wrong with it. That bridge can be repaired. Now, why can't we just pick up that bridge, bring it back to the public works yard or wherever it is, and they have proper people and fix it up? Am I dreaming?
No, you're not dreaming, and I would want to say too, I mean, credit to your brother in terms of his fine engineering work.
Yeah.
But the failure of that particular bridge was because of the fact that there was no desilting of the river.
Correct.
And then logs came down from upstream.
Right.
And there's a small video of just before it failed.
Yeah.
And what happened was that the logs were lodged in the center of the bridge and caused a rotation to take place.
Okay.
And that is what snapped it from the edges of the abutment.
Yeah, but the actual bridge itself, is there anything wrong with it?
You're correct. I mean, you can use some of those sections for some of the smaller communities that we have.
Because I looked at the steel. The steel is in perfect condition.
Yeah. Or even if you don't want to do it, sell it as scrap. You might make a little money.
Yes. Now, let us go to the question of potholes. Again, I drive around, I see a nice road, and I see a little fracture, and I'm told again that once you have a fracture and water starts to get in, it quickly deteriorates. Now, you were in the public works, as I said years ago, and I don't know what methods do they have of addressing these situations, because, you know, it's, as we discussed earlier, a mile of road is approximately $1 million EC. So that's no small amount of money, especially now when money is difficult to find. That I always felt that there should be some sort of a system in place whereby they can address those potholes as soon as they see them. Don't let them last too long. Square them off and do what is right. What is your take on that?
Correct. And you start with your main roads, your primary roads, your primary network, first of all, needs to be always in top condition. So if you have a pothole appearing on the Millennium Highway or on the Rosalie Highway, that takes priority over every other pothole.
Correct. Because that's a heavily used road.
That's a heavy used road. So if that is the principle that has to be established, that your primary network together with your primary network, first of all, takes precedence.
Okay.
So that is so. But then also, in 89, I would say 89 to 95, when I was there, we had a fairly established potholing unit that was dedicated to potholing only.
Okay.
What I've seen happening over the last couple of years is a moving away from that, and you see them cutting trees and cutting bush, and right. While you may want to make use of them in other activities, but the potholing unit should be potholing only.
Definitely.
That's all.
Yeah. Now, you raised a very good point a while ago about desilting, and we have the same situation at the dam. Okay?
That's right.
Now, I just want to touch on that slightly because I have a couple other things I want to tap you on. Again, I'm not an engineer, but I ask myself a question. When I pass around, I see them, a truck pumping concrete to slab a first floor of a building. Now, I'm asking the question, if you can pump concrete one in, isn't there something that we can use to, couldn't that same machine on a smaller scale pull out mud from an area, suck it out? And what I've been told is that if that was done, the problem would be there's a certain amount of water in the muck that would be got there. But you can actually put it into a sort of a machine where it sort of not dries it out, but the water goes out. Now, and I'm saying there are several million cubic yards of silt in that dam today. But if, for instance, once a week, 24 hours a day, we say on Wednesdays, we're going to lock off the water, and we're going to make a concerted effort to pump out some, at least a test case. And you have cul-de-sac, which is 5-6 feet of stuff that needed any time to fill it. I know it may not make the best, but for now you have a place to put it. What is your take? Because I went to a meeting recently, and when I heard what is going on there, I said to myself, you know, to me, trying to desilt the John Compton Dam appears to be an exercise in futility, because they tell me a lot of stuff is coming down still, so as fast as you to take out, it's going to come in. But then that is our water supply. So I'm hitting you two questions now, because that is one which I want you to address. And the second one is that the German government has just offered 200,000 euros, not a lot of money, if we can match it, to put up water tanks at strategic locations. Now, up north, for instance, is an area where you have a lot of hotels, and that's your industry. You can get tanks up to 7 million gallons. So I will ask you, please, if you could just respond to me on what I said concerning the dam, the desilting, and also the storage.
Well, I want to start by responding to your continuous refrain that you're not a civil engineer.
Yes.
But common sense.
Common sense.
The platform of engineering is common sense.
Yeah.
Right? So the civil engineering profession and all engineering practices are based first on common sense, and then we move on to mathematical explanations for what is common.
Okay.
All right? So let's go back to the dam, for example.
Right.
All right? If you have a situation where you have, because essentially what happened in the dam is that there was a river course coming down.
Yes.
You built a high wall to stop the water and to contain the water. Correct. So that's all it is. It's a valley.
That's right.
And a wall coming up to a particular height.
Yes.
That will dam the water that fills behind it. Now, the same common sense will say to you that if you had silt in the river before you dammed it, when rain falls, okay?
Yeah.
Then you will have silt in the river after you dam it, when rain falls.
Correct.
So there will always be silt moving from the upper streams, the upper areas, the upland areas.
Yeah. From point A to point B.
From point A to point B.
Right.
So that once you build the dam, you would have recognized that there will always be a need for desilting, because silt will always be present within the water that is coming and being held and retained in that particular structure. Okay? That's a fact.
Yeah.
So there must have been at some point in time some consideration, not after all these years that the dam has been built, that we have a problem. That's one. What I find also disingenuous in terms of the WASCO's position is the suggestion that this appeared overnight and that Hurricane Thomas is the culprit that created this crisis on our hands. That is not true. There was siltation in the dam before Thomas.
And
Thomas,
they will be after.
and they will be after. Right? So that is the reality that we face.
But just to jump in for a moment, when the dam was built, I was told that there was at the bottom of the dam some sort of a bypass.
A bypass,
yeah, where the silt
was,
would be. It was just never done.
It was built.
No, it was built, but nobody implemented it.
I mean, I can't speak to what the issues are. But the dam itself, when it was constructed, there was that facility to have that drawdown of the silt that occurs at the bottom of it. Right? Whatever happens, we have a problem on our hands. So going back to your common sense, yes, it is that there are equipment that exists to dredge it. It's a dredge. The dredging operation is required. It's to take the silt from the bottom, no different from what you're doing in Castries Harbor. When the Castries Harbor fills up with silt, you bring in the dredge. I think they bring it out of Trinidad. They come, they dredge, and they go their way. So the technology is there to dredge it. I think about 2 or 3 years ago, WASCO engaged HALCRO to do a study on that situation that they found themselves in. There were recommendations, which I believe should be followed. One of the recommendations is that, okay, if your height is at this point in time, there's something that they call gates, sluice gates.
Sluice gates.
Spillway gates, in fact, where you can put on top of the spillway, and essentially you have additional volume of water within that is stored. Right? So one of the recommendations, I think it's German technology, they call Oberheimer gates or something like that, was to build that gate, and that would have increased the storage of water within the dam. The second recommendation they had was that they should...
Without cutting you short, can that be done while the dam is in operation?
While the dam is in operation.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that was one of the immediate recommendations. That proceed now, build that, to ensure that you have...
And you don't know why it wasn't done?
Well, they may say finance. I don't know. I can't speak to that.
Fine. Okay, it wasn't done.
Yeah. Then the second recommendation was to invest in a dredge, and to periodically, that becomes the asset of WASCO. And to periodically over the years, every year you're doing your desilting slowly but surely, but every year you know, okay, there's a deposit of silt, and after a while, you get on top of it. So the two simple recommendations: invest in a dredge, put it on top there, it stays on there full time, and every year, as a continuous maintenance activity, you are dredging your dam.
You know, it's so funny you should say that, John, because some 15 years ago, maybe or so, I was a director at the Port Authority, and when that barge, as you mentioned, used to come in from Trinidad to the silt, the port had to pay about $4 million to do the job. And I distinctly remember that the port was under pressure because Geest Industries insisted if they didn't do it, they would not come to Port Castries because the boat was sucking too much crap. And I said to them, why don't you buy a cherry picker with a drag line, 100,000 US. Every Monday morning, dig a 14-foot silt trap at the mouth of the river, and actually can sell the stuff for topsoil. You know, everybody thought it was a good idea, but never done. And you continue to pay this money, and when you finish now, you look down all by Latok, all this garbage that's going in there. I know that there are many subjects that we have to discuss. Another one that worries me a bit is the 13,000 gallons of raw sewer going into the Castries Harbor every day. And some time ago, I brought in a friend of mine from Barbados who could actually sink a treatment plant right at the promontory where the pipes go. So what is the dark side of all this stuff going into the harbor on a daily basis?
Well, it is much more than 13,000 gallons. 13,000 gallons is a very conservative estimate. I mean, it's probably a couple 100,000 gallons that are going inside daily. And you see it openly. And as a public health concern, I see people fishing at that location, which sometimes, causes you to be very alarmed. That at the mouth there, right where you see guys throwing their fishing line, and you can imagine the level of contamination of the fish that they're eating. So it's a public health issue that I really believe the Ministry of Health should consider.
You know, the Prime Minister just received 100,000 euros from the French to do again a feasibility. Now I'm asking myself, why should a feasibility be done when just common sense will tell you if you sink a treatment plant there and treat all the stuff going out one time, it's finished. So that 100,000 should go towards that and not a feasibility, because it will probably go into the archives never to be read.
But it's interesting because I was reading the budget address of 1997 this morning, yesterday and this morning.
Yeah.
In that budget address, it speaks about that particular sewage treatment facility.
Okay.
1997.
1997.
And it says that the Caribbean Development Bank had approved or was in the process of considering a $32 million loan, but it was contingent upon the government sorting out the institutional issues within WASA at the time.
Okay.
Interestingly, 17 years ago,
Yeah.
the CDB was saying, I am willing to give you $32 million to sort out the problem with sewage going into the Castries Harbor, but contingent on that, fix WASA at the time.
Yeah. I mean, you know, sometimes
I don't know what happened with the loan
Yeah.
discussions, but it is something that we need to consider.
Okay. Now, another little concern that I have is Castries. You have a port. Do you know that 80% of the containers are empty containers?
That are on the port
Yeah,
now? Okay.
80% are empty containers. People just leave it there and they pay a storage charge.
Okay.
Now, it is an 8-minute drive from Port Castries to Kalisa.
Kalisa.
Government owns 200 acres of land. I am saying, why can't we take 5 acres of land and backfill it, concrete it nicely, put in this nice concrete fencing around, and take all that there and free up the place for the cruise ships. Now, again, from where the banana boat used to dock right down to Latok, the road is caving in. Now, I feel that we can easily get an investor from Trinidad who can come in. It doesn't have to be NH International, but they can do it. They have the means and they have the capability to sheet pile all along that road, okay? And it can create 2 extra berths for your cruise lines. All the garbage that settles down by the top is unsightly. When you come in on a cruise ship and you look around there, and you have to compare places like St. Martin and Aruba that people go to, that's a comparison that you have to make, and it's not good. What is your take on a thing like that?
Well, definitely. I mean, I live at Latok.
Okay,
So
you see it every day.
I'm fully aware
Yeah,
of what is happening from that point from Tapion
yeah,
into Castries and the wasted opportunities.
yes.
Because this is prime land,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Prime land, and the thing is that you get $5 for every passenger that comes in, whether they come ashore or not. Now, when it stays outside, I don't think you get paid. So, I mean, when you come, 4,000 people come, times 5, that's $20,000, you know. The more ships you can bring in, the better. And of course, you have the effect that people go on tours, you know. Yeah. Yeah. Now, over by the airport, it's not the little VG Cove, okay? You know where Cole Pot is? Yeah. That used to be a very safe place years ago, because when we had schooners, that's where we used to put them when a hurricane came. But where Point Seraphine was, it was a mangrove. So when you had a westerly breeze, and the water would go in, it would dissipate into the mangrove. But as you now have the Point Seraphine of the concrete, in an effort to dissipate its anger, you have the swells coming inside there. And what I thought should be done, you get some boulders and close off that bay and just leave an entrance for the boats to go in, and that would make it complete safe, and you could have a minimal. Is that possible at all? What would you?
Well, I know SLASPOY is working on SLASPOY is working on the whole. I know there's a study done and in progress of the whole rationalization of the ports.
Okay.
Whether you should have your central port in Vieux Fort and allow Castries to be your primary
Cruise
cruise ship
ship.
port.
Okay.
Whether you should have the ferry terminal on the other side,
Yeah.
the same areas you're talking
Yeah,
about
right.
there, and to have the ferry passengers land on that side. So I know that there have been various studies over the years within SLASPA looking at the various permutations.
We're going back to the same studies thing again.
Studies again.
Yeah.
It is decision time.
Yeah.
There has to come a point where decisions have to be made,
That's right.
and we take the decision with the best information we have,
Yeah.
and we live with it.
Now you were Trinidadian. Do you go to Trinidad still?
Not very often.
Not often. Now, am I dreaming when I say today, I don't think the government should continue to borrow any money at this point in time, because that will affect our, what you call, our monetary standing. There are Trinidadians, I'm sure, contractors, if they came here and they got the right concessions and partnered with government, would come and do those things. Am I correct?
But I mean, I can't speak. I mean, I don't know if
Because you haven't been in touch.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
if there's any. The issue, obviously, recovery will always play. I mean, it's a business decision,
Yeah.
and I think that's the reality of it. Yeah, I mean, nobody's coming
Yeah.
to
To give you anything.
to give you anything.
Yeah.
They're always coming with a return
Yeah.
on their investment. But I mean, what you're pointing towards is public-private partnerships,
Yes.
which I
Right,
believe
Is
is important
Yeah.
and should be pursued a lot further. I mean, before we started, you were talking about the investment that the government made years ago in the brewery,
Yes.
where we said, okay, we don't have the funds, we give you the land,
Yeah.
$1 million investment in land, but has recovered 15 million, as you said, over the period of time.
That's right.
And those concepts, I believe, should be pursued where you use your asset. What's the
Yeah.
asset we have? We have assets of buildings, we
Yeah.
have assets of land,
Yeah.
and do that partnership, public-private partnership with various investors,
Yeah.
and convert some of our assets either into shares. So if you want to build a hotel, we say, okay, no problem. And
Yeah.
I mean, the principle of government getting involved in investments in the tourism sector, I don't have a problem with that concept.
Yeah.
As a concept that has to be pursued. But don't get involved in the management. The day-to-day management of it, you're not a hoteler. The government is not a hoteler. But to say that you can place some of your investment in a tourism product,
Yeah.
which you are saying is the product that we want to push as our economy, as the growth of the economy, then yes, I mean, show your
Yeah.
commitment by putting investment into it.
Yeah. Because once the land is sitting there or doing nothing, it's earning nothing.
It's only nothing.
Yeah.
It's only nothing.
Folks, this is the end of our program. This is Open Mic. And John, I want to thank you so much for being here. Your contribution was invaluable, and I hope I can meet again.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you
very
so
much.
much.